Hey everyone! Recently we went on a barge for the very first time. Craig's parents had hired a barge and they were having a holiday where they were just travelling along the Shropshire Union Canal. So since it's not very far from where we live, we decided to join them for a day, just for the experience of going on a barge to see what it was like. The barge they hired was just a normal barge, which is not wheelchair accessible. So we just thought we'd make this quick video to show you what it was like for Craig getting on and off the barge.
We only went on the outside of the barge, we didn't go on the inside. Theoretically, I could have got inside, but as soon as you're on the barge, the first thing you are greeted with is some steep stairs into the interior area. So straight away that would have been quite difficult for me. There was a bed area right at the entrance, so it would have been possible for me to stay the night, but we decided it just wasn't worth the hassle because accessing things like the toilets was even more difficult.
Yeah, because every barge has a different layout, so not all barges would necessarily be like this. But on this barge, the corridors were really narrow and Craig's wheelchair wouldn't have been able to fit down them. And they also had loads of tight bends, so getting to the toilet or something would have been just pretty much impossible for Craig to do in the wheelchair. He'd have had to get onto his bum and shuffle like really far down the corridor, so it wasn't really very practical. So we met up with Craig's parents and got on the barge, and then we just had a little trip down the canal. We rode over the Pontcysyllte Aqueduct, which is quite a famous aqueduct, so we just wanted to try that, and we also got to try going through a lock, which was quite interesting. Yeah. And we also both had a turn at driving the barge.
Yeah, so I did a bit of driving in the wheelchair, which was interesting because the height of the barge, I couldn't really see over it and see where I was going. But the canal boat moved so slowly that people could shout directions at me and be like, turn to the left, turn to the right.
Yeah.
And also the arm of the rudder at the back to steer sort of stuck out a long way and ended up sort of crashing into my chair a bit. So it was a bit difficult for me to manoeuvre around, but it was interesting to give it a go.
Since we didn't stay on the barge, we had to get back to our car at the end of the day. So we brought my bike and Craig's Batek with us. So you can see my bike we just put on the roof like this. With Craig's Batek, we found that the best way to keep it on the barge, make sure it didn't fall off, was to put it in this hole out the front. And it was fine there. It didn't fall out or anything. It was protected.
But this is the nice thing about canals in the UK, is the majority of them have a reasonably good quality tow path along the side. Which is pretty good for cycling on most of the way. So when we got off, we just hooked up to the Batek and Claire on her bike, and we just cycled straight back to the car without any issues.
So getting on and off the barge was a bit of a challenge for Craig because there's no ramp or anything.
So we've only done this the once, and so we have no idea if this is actually the best way of doing it. But the way that we found worked for us was for me to go in a big wheelie and get my front casters on over the edge of the barge. At this point it was too narrow for my back wheels to go over, which I may have tried with some help from Claire behind. But since this wasn't possible, I then transferred down onto the floor of the barge. I shuffled out of the way and Claire brought the wheelchair onto the back of the boat for me, and then I did a floor to wheelchair transfer to get back onto my wheelchair.
So going on a barge was an interesting experience. We'd never done it before, so it was just nice to try something new. We've heard that they do actually have wheelchair accessible barges and canal boats, so we would be interested to try that at some point just to see what it's actually like if you've got one that is wheelchair accessible, but at the same time it's not something that we're in a huge rush to try.
Yeah, it was fun, but kind of had that experience.
Exactly.
Not going to jump at the chance to do it again.
Yeah, but it would be interesting to try actually spending a night on one. So yeah, we'd try it at some point, but definitely not in a rush. And then getting back off the boat again was basically the same thing in reverse. Unfortunately, this video clip is not very good quality, but as you can see, it was just Craig did exactly the same steps as getting on, but in reverse.
Yeah, because Claire was helping me with my wheelchair, this footage was actually shot by my sister on her phone, so I apologise for the bad quality.
Hopefully that's given you a little bit of insight into what going on a barge is like, and especially for what it's like for a wheelchair user. Now we are going to be doing a Q&A video soon, so if you've got any questions about anything at all, then put them in the comments or send us a message and we will answer your questions in the Q&A.
Yep, we're not shy, so nothing's off limits, so ask away.
Thank you for watching and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye-bye.